close to 20. I'm like, definitely not 21. And he listened to me. I come in there as an adult in a suit. I'm in like a collared shirt or whatever. And he's like, actually, like, I kept on waiting for him to dismiss me. Like,
right.
Actually listen to what I'm saying. And like, I wasn't even ready for it. You see what I'm saying? He's like, actually listen to what I'm saying. He's like, yeah, okay, so what are you going to do with this, this, and this? And just that like potential of being 100% down with whatever I'm doing. Just like, I'm listening to you just in case that you are a next unicorn. In case you are like a next fucking Elon Musk, Zuckerberg, whatever prodigy billionaire person it is. They gave me that shot there.
Right.
And he's like, the craziest thing after I gave him my whole pitch of what Hangarang was before that. He's like, crazy thing, last week we had a similar thing to doing this. And this guy said something that I think is pretty similar to what you're doing. I'm not sure if either of them are feasible, but I'm going to link you to. And like, there's great stories of how I interact with Javier, like my business partner, how I met him, whatever. But we linked up and we created this awesome thing. And like from that knowledge, I'm saying from the first knowledge from deep dive, I learned how to learn. From the second knowledge, I learned how to interact with people.
So all of that, what you just described, that's a beautiful thing. Like that is when people give people in our age range a chance.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. So when that was going down, when that interaction was happening, that was during your coding class.
Immediately afterwards. So
right, when that had finished.
3 months after.
Right, when that had finished. Okay.
So I finished this COVID class. I do some contract work. I'm working for Hold My Ticket for cool, weird, crazy, sick, innovative companies. People that would hire me.
Yeah.
And then I go from this to jumping into this thing. And it was like, at first, I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work, right? But like, I meet this person. We have this great interaction. He's actually a brilliant musician. And so when I decided to really kind of embark on this, I was like...
Just like the water in front of you.
I was like, yeah, dude, you could jam. We're going to fucking vibe. We're going to make some money. You know, I was like, I hear you play. I appreciate how you play. We're going to make some money.
Right.
So I take off on this trip.
I'll take that from you.
And, you know, months and months in, I don't know. I just try to relate to it. There's the story of the people that make Airbnb. They ended up going through this accelerator called Y Combinator, super fancy, super famous in the Bay Area. The kingmakers, like, you know, and Airbnb, before they got into that project, had literally supported themselves selling novelty cereal based off President Obama. They literally sold like 4,000 boxes of Obama O's. Look up Obama O's. But like the Airbnb story is insane because no one really believed that Airbnb could be a thing. They're like, you're telling me people are going to let you into your house, strangers into their houses?
Oh my. Obama O's hope in every bowl Airbnb. Shut up.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. It's about this struggle. It's about this overcoming of adversity, this literal manifest resilience, right? Brilliant. So I dive super hard into startup culture, learning to code. I'm getting crazy with it, freelancing on the side. And then what my job really was, chief of product, you could say it. CCO is sick. That's a cool C-suite thing I never heard of before.
Say it again?
The CCO, the chief creative officer, never heard of that before. I love that. That's sick.
Yeah.
I was definitely chief of product or chief technical officer kind of thing. Or even sometimes acting as COO, chief operating officer. I love this framework, this hierarchy. Oh my gosh, they're so white. Wait, if you go back, go back to this footage of the founders of Airbnb. Look how much they are the same person.
Yeah.
Just bland ass white guys. I love it. Anyway.
If they came out and said, hey, yeah, we've been making clones, and the first two were the guys who made Airbnb, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense.
No,
I get it.
They're way too counterculture for it. So all this stuff, and then I'm like, okay, I am out of my savings. I am on my own edge. I have to make money while I'm continuing to try to make this dream come alive. The first job I did that was super fun is that, actually, fuck all the other jobs. One of the last jobs I did is I got a summer job with this nonprofit, the Fund for the Public Interest, or Environment New Mexico. Technically, I worked for the fund, but I was a, proper or like on face value working for the environment in Mexico.
Okay.
And I literally took this job because I was like, I am tired of not being around young people. I'm around all these suits and these gray beards and these coders, which are worse than the suits and the gray beards because they have no social function, right? For the most part, there's definitely exceptions. I love my coder friends, but they literally had us as a group go around asking people for money to save the bees. Look, I have a huge support, and I could talk for hours about how important it is for us to save, like the Hymenoptera, these pollinating insects, flying insects, especially bees, because bees are sick. Bees are so cool.
As a small caveat, what are like the bullet points of that?
Of the save
for
the
people
bees?
who are listening that don't understand that.
Sure. So there are these things called neonicotinoids. They're a fertilizer or a pesticide that are readily used in almost 75% of corn crops specifically, but like a lot of different kind of crops. And essentially you pesticide like these grainy, like, you know, these crops, like especially corn, and it works to keep away other bugs. But if a bee comes in contact with a neonicotinoid, not only does it get like super fucked up, it gets like essentially like 7 cigars deep and drunk at the same time, but then it also is able to pass along this ineptitude to other members of its hive that it meets, if it makes it back to its hive.
And this is all because of a pesticide.
This is the neonicotinoids that are actively responsible for it.
Okay. And do you, as you said, grain crops? So are we finding this pesticide?
Rye, wheat, corn.
I was going to say, so you're finding
kind of
this in most of your bread loaves that you buy at fucking Walmart or Smith's.
If they're domestic made, oftentimes yes.
Interesting.
And largely people are banning neonicotinoids. There was like 6 states back in 2018 or whenever I was doing this that had already banned neonicotinoids. I think Connecticut was one of them. It's like, of course Connecticut can ban something about agriculture. Who the fuck is growing stuff in Connecticut anyway?
So
sorry, Connecticut farmers. I love you still.
But so just to play devil's advocate, what are the positives to using neonicotinoids?
It's cheap as shit. It's a pesticide. It's a good pesticide.
Okay.
It's ubiquitous pesticide even. Like, anyway, the save
So
the bees problem.
it's a money thing more than
It's
anything.
a money thing more than anything else. And it's like a money thing. It's like, okay, am I supposed to take on all these extra costs versus any of my other competitors just for this bees problem? Like, based off my
Right.
conscience, am I supposed to take on all these extra costs and kill my business model, or like critically endanger my business model?
You hinder yourself, or you hinder your business for sure.
And right. And so that's where literally regulation steps in. It's like regulation says, no, you can't use neonicotinoids. So it makes more of a fair competition for this thing that everybody wants. Nobody wants the bees to die. Nobody wants the bees to die, because if the bees die, then all flowering plants really will suffer.
Right.
Unless you know anybody that can make robotic bees. I know some cool people that don't.
My first bet is Elon Musk.
Yeah,
that is my first bet.
Elon Musk is too high on Joe Rogan's podcast to fucking make robotic bees.
Dude, I love.
Anyway, so
Yeah, if you side note, if you want to hear something really cool, just a deep introspective into what Tesla is looking at for their 10-year
Sure,
plan,
yeah.
look at his most recent Joe Rogan on Spotify. Like, dude, it's like 3 hours long, but dear Christ, is it worth listening to?
there you go.
They are doing some crazy shit. Like that's the thing I'll say about it. So you can continue. I love what you're saying. They have a minivan they're coming out, or a sedan they're coming out with, where just inherently it's by itself. I think there's like an extra, like a button you press to make it more sealed, but by itself, doors closed, everything. You can drive through pretty much like a mustard gas went off, and none of it is going to get into the vehicle. They have commercial airliner standard filters within the sedan. It is absolutely insane. Oh yeah, they're doing some crazy shit over in Tesla. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, no, that does sound really cool. Tesla stock is very interesting. So I'm going through this, and I'm talking this whole summer. I'm interacting with young people, which is what I wanted out of this. And I'm trying to figure out how do I get people, like, to how to raise a group of young people to work for Hangarang, which is my original goal.
Right.
Why my business partner was like, yeah, no, I'm down for you to get this other job to help support, but like, you should figure out how to get like a bunch of young people to be fighting for us. But in this, one, you had to have this pitch, and this pitch was brilliant. It's like, it's so obnoxious, but it, like, essentially starting with like, hi, like, I'm Gus Liakos with this environment in Mexico, blah, 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 blah. Like, do you care about the bees? Is essentially the next part of it. It's like, are you a fucking evil human being?
No, dude, okay.
And they're like, no, I'm not an evil human being. I'm sorry. And then it's like, what the higher ups in this organization pretty much said is like, after that first question, there should be no more interaction with the other person. You should be entirely controlling the rest of the interaction until they give you money.
No, for sure.
It's brilliant. Like the way that they're engineering the system. It's a 501c4, which is not a 501c3 and requires like these different regulation things.
Okay, so then there is a reason I'm asking you this.
Yeah.
The difference between a 501c3 and a 4. What is the difference?
Well, largely it's based off of how the income is being distributed. So 501c3 is the gold standard of charities, right? 501c4 doesn't have to have like a certain threshold of the money that's coming in go to the actual cause. So 501c4, if I'm not mistaken, it's like more than 35% of the income has to go to the cause. Or no.
That sounds like the gold. That sounds like how it should be.
501c3, like 85% or more has to go to the cause.
Interesting.
And that's the difference. Which is like in a charity, yeah, there's things that could be said like the administrative costs are not negligible and like there's a certain amount that should be definitely going to it. But I know with the Save the Bees thing that like a huge portion of it was going to pay us. Because it turns out I was really fucking good at getting money from these people. I'm exceptional at like pledging this. At one point, someone literally told me, they're like, I really want to donate. I don't have the financial means to do this, but I make these wooden swords for these sword dancing deals. And one of these swords was just given back. Wait, bear with it. Literally, one of these swords was just given back because it had like some flaw in the stitching. So they're like, I can't give you anything, but it's getting dark and I want to give you something. So here's this sword they sent back, which had like a tiny flaw in it. So I have a wooden sword in my house that was just literal pure representation of like my ability to persuade people and bullshit people that terrifies me. And it makes me so sad.
You have a wooden sword that you did not bring. Oh my God. Next time you're on the show, you are bringing a wooden fucking sword. Oh my. So the reason I ask is because my current occupation, I'm not going to name the organization. I'm not going to name the nonprofit because I'm just going to go on a whim and assume that my views don't exactly align. But my current day job is I work for a direct marketing company.
Okay.
And we do the direct marketing on behalf of the nonprofit that we work with.
Sure.
And it was definitely a risk taking the job because it's as you know, it's 100% commission.
Oh God.
Yeah. But I really do love the nonprofit we work with.
That's good.
I really do love it. It's a suicide-based nonprofit. So it's something that's unfortunately very close to me. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And so the nonprofit that we work with is a 501c3.
Right.
And this is like brand new to me. Like I've never even heard of what a 501c3 is. I didn't even know there was a 501c4 until fucking 2 minutes ago. So that's interesting.
Wait till I tell you about the 501c7.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, continue. So that's why I ask, is because this is my day job for the time being.
So the other thing that was very important to me after like this brilliant, wonderful experience, I maxed out the commission structure in this for a couple weeks, and then I was able to talk to someone like a level up above my boss and literally got to ask them the questions that I wanted for my startup. And I got this great information, and I was like, okay, well, I guess now I can quit. And they were literally like a domestic abuser, like fighting so hard against me quitting, right?
Oh my God.
And that's what scared me, is that it's like, look, this is an insane job regardless, right? You're literally sending people to beg. You're sending children to beg from older folks. That's the entire reason this business model works.
No, I mean, trust me, I get you. Can I get one of those real quick?
Please, dude. Altoids are sick. Altoids, they're everywhere. You've never seen any commercials for them.
No, I really haven't. Now that you mention,
why would they? They're everywhere already. Everyone knows about them. They never need a commercial. It's brilliant. But what I'm saying with that is that I'm like, okay, so very interesting. This kind of negative thing, and it's like if you can sell something that you don't believe in, then theoretically you could sell anything. Especially you can sell something that you do believe in, right? So I learned through this summer. of like going through this, how to deal with rejection, which is something I was never good at. But this is really what I want to get into.
As a quick teacher, that type of business.
We're walking around with essentially like a tablet strapped to your wrist with the ability to like show information, right? You can take it off your wrist, but it also would tell you based off voter records or some other information. I'm not entirely sure where they get all their information for. The people that are most likely to donate, right? So you could have like different colors and they have it all set up. And it's very much foolproof to literally get anybody in there, right? To do this. And you would go to these addresses, you would have the name of the people there. So you knock on it and be like, I'm looking for this person.
Oh, so you're doing door to door.
Literally, this is door-to-door sales. Right?
Oh, okay, interesting. Because like just for context, where I'm
Please.
coming from, the marketing that I'm doing is like we pop up an event in front of like a grocery store, a retailer, like today I was in front of a female boutique in a very well populated part of town. So that's the type of marketing that I'm used to right now. I mean, outside of the stuff that we do for the podcast, obviously, but like that's what ours does. So you were actually a door-to-door person.
Oh no, this is brutal. This is literally door to door. Thank God before Corona, right? But like,
Yeah.
I'm going door to door, Albuquerque, different areas, zip codes in Albuquerque, Santa Fe too. And it's like, one, I loved it because it's summer and I get to go and explore. That's one of my real passions is be able to explore the spaces, especially spaces close to my heart like this city, like Santa Fe, like New Mexico.
That's what humans are meant to do.
And it was great. That's the whole thing is that I can't complain about any of this time because it's like I'm getting paid. I'm doing something that I'm fairly good at, which is, giving me the dopamine cycle and I'm exploring. Right. But rejection after rejection. You have to think, like, I'm definitely at the top end of this spectrum of the people that are making money through this, right? Like, there's a commission structure where you have to sell a certain amount of things to a certain amount of people.
Totally get you, yeah.
But I'm like, I am going to house after house after house across different areas, so many places, and so many times you get doors slapped in your face. But that
you get told to go fuck yourself. No, for sure.
100% you get told to go fuck yourself. And at first I was like, oh, how dare you? And I was like, of course you would. Of course you would say that. But then I'm thinking after a while, it's like, then after you've been rejected enough that every time that you come to the door with someone, every time you knock or ring a doorbell, for that split-second interaction, right then, you are the only thing deciding whether or not you're going to get money or not. It's not the other person. I think that that's like a mind fuck, perhaps, that it's like the other person may or may not be willing to to give you money, but it's entirely on you. So it's like every time you show up to a door, you have to be on your A game. If you show any sort of weakness or any sort of like despair about this thing, you're probably not going to get it.
Well, see, and that's like, again, I have done door to door, but like, at least with what we're doing, like what I've been doing, and I've been doing this since the beginning of January, so not very long. At least in my experience, like I can't, like, because that's something our boss, the owner of the company, tells us, like, it's entirely on you and how it goes. And I'm like, I don't necessarily agree with that because, like,
you haven't felt it yet.
But because I have done very well.
Sure, of course.
Right, with like, I've gone to certain events and I've done certain venues where I smashed that shit. But then I've had other events, like, honestly, like this past week, I've had a few where it's like, it didn't do well. But I look around me and I'm like, okay, I'm in a very low income area and you can work low income. I have worked low income. You can do low income area. We could get collectively a lot of money.
Sure. Right.
For the cause. And low traffic. You could do these things, but there's always going to be people, no matter where you go, that will not, no matter what you do, will not talk to you.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think there's just like, and I know you don't have this mindset, but I just know that there are people in my office that do, where it's like, no matter what you can do with every single person. It's like, no, you can't, because nothing is absolute. Go ahead. There is nothing absolute in this life.
So I hear what you're saying, and then so many rejections. You have to imagine, sometimes people open the door, look at me and like, I've literally heard someone say, it's like, This is going to be one of those words you said not to say. Literally, someone has opened the door when I was doing the Save the Beast. They'd be like, ha, faggot, and close the door behind.
Right.
And I'm like, well, fuck you, dude. But, like, after all that rejection, it's like the numbness to it. It's like in Muay Thai, where I don't do Muay Thai, but, like, from everybody that I know that has interacted with it, they actively break the bones in your shins to make you have more resilient shins. They actively go through this process over years, right, to literally make microfractures in your shins so that when the bones repair and they create this scar tissue underneath the skin on the bone level, they make a more resilient surface so that you're more able to take blows there and you're more able to kick people with the shins than necessarily only just your foot. It's part of like the core piece of Muay Thai. It's a martial art, right?
Well, I know what it is, but like I didn't know that.
That's painful.
Yeah, no, that sounds agonizing.
But like harikuri, or like where they make pottery with gold, where everything's broken, they seal it back with gold. The fact that it is breaking all this time, and that you're like going through all this process of, you know, almost like violence against yourself, like almost like the rejection sucks. But when you go through all of that and you come out the other side, like it makes you stronger. And I know how fucking corny that
No,
is.
it's a fact. No. So there's a individual that I agree, like for the most part with what he has to say. Jordan Peterson. I'm sure you've heard of him.
I don't know if I want to talk about Jordan Peterson.
Okay.
Can I retroactively say I don't want to talk about
Okay, that's fine.
Jordan
That's fine.
Peterson?
But that's fine because I know he's a very controversial individual. And so it's funny because my producer gave me the same exact conversation. We were on a call and we were talking about how we're going to market and how we're going to like move forward to the second season. And Jordan Peterson came up and he's like, "No, I don't know, not over Discord." And I was like, "That's fair," because he's a very controversial individual. But one thing that I definitely agree with him, and it falls very much in line with the violence against yourself, right? It's that, like, traditionally, it's very much aligned towards men, but it applies to everyone, in my opinion. There is the idea that self-imposed hardship, where you will not grow no matter how much you physically like study and read and all these things. Like, you have to put things into practice, and you have to put yourself through tribulation. You have to put yourself through hardship, whether it's physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, where you have to like get yourself into a uncomfortable position, where you have to put yourself through discomfort to really test your mettle. And that's when you figure out, like, okay, are you able to, like, whatever level, whether it's a martial art, whether it's joining an armed force of some sort, whether it's intellectually being super challenged, are you able, whatever level you throw yourself and you thrust yourself into or you graduate into, right? Are you ready for this? And it's okay if you're not ready for it, whatever you're doing, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you're not, like, my big thing is weightlifting. Okay. Like, you're not, if you've never lifted weights,
yeah,
you are not going to walk into a gym and bench 225. You're not going to do it unless you're some sort of freak of fucking nature with natural strength of like Zeus himself. You are not going to walk in and start benching 2 or 3 plates. You're going to start out with a bar. But that's where everybody starts. And that's a very extreme example, but going from a bar to 225, but like, it's important to continue to test yourself until you meet your limit.
Jake from Adventure Time says the first step to being sort of good at something is sucking at something.
Yeah, you have to suck.
Something like that.
And if you're going to suck the best at it. Like, be the worst, man. Know where you're at.
Yeah.
And on that note, we're going to take a quick pee break, and we'll be back. Okay, we're back. Yeah. Okay, so, hey, let me actually get the space here. I want to get the space a little bit hotter. Well, no, so what I was saying was just that I think it's important for people, right? Not just men, not just women, but everyone to find that point in their life where they're like, either I'm happy with where I'm at, but I'm not content, and and I need to, like, being content with where you're at is important, but, like, not being willing to grow, right?
Yeah.
And then, like, either finding that point, or at the worst of the two, finding the point where you're like, if I stay here, I'm gonna die. Whether it's physically, spiritually, mentally, it's like, if I stay here, it means death.
Right.
You know, like, this is not going to be servicing me. Whatever stage that I'm in life, this is not sustainable. And being able to realize that, and then I think the next step, logically, is recognizing that the only thing that's going to make me grow is hardship. Whatever form that takes, right? Whether it's finding a new job that is more physically demanding, more mentally demanding than what you're originally used to, whether that's forcing yourself to get a newfound education that maybe you don't want to, but you know that you have to, whether it's getting out of a shitty relationship that you're in, no matter whether that's a romantic one or a friendship one, right? Or a familial one, right? Being in a shitty family relationship, whatever that can be, whatever is, because I think it's very, for the most part, it's easy for people to find and recognize, like, okay, this is what is hindering me in my life right now, right? This job, this substance, this person, right? Persons, substances, jobs, right? It can all be plural. These are the things that are hindering me in my life. Okay, now what am I going to do to get out of it? Can I get out of it? Right? Because I also recognize that people are not as fortunate as others. And whether that just requires more hard work, whether that requires a literal leap of faith of leaving the community you're in. Like, I really like, because for the most part, me, when I have my philosophy on life, it's me being a realist, right? Okay. It's like, if you work hard enough, like a realist, like, things are the way they are at face value, and just realize the situation and move forward. But there is that optimist inside of me where it's like, if you do work hard enough, if you do continue to push yourself and you continue to make the right decisions, in large part, like, there's clear, correct decisions to make in life. If you continue to do that, eventually, all of that's going to pay off in one way or another, right? But I recognize that, again, like we said earlier, nothing is cut and dry. Nothing is perfect. Shitty things happen to good people.
Sure.
Shitty things continue to happen to good people for whatever reason. Really amazing things happen to really bad people. You know? Like,
that's definitely where I feel.
Yeah, like, great fortune comes upon bad people. But again, like, I really do believe that if you continue to work and you continue to push yourself, that you're going to get somewhere. And that might actually just end up being where you want to be. Or maybe you get to a better place where it's like, if I had gotten to where I wanted to be, that would have actually left me worse off in the long run, right?
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? I think like, if you can't adopt a philosophy, I'm not saying that my philosophy is the perfect one, 'cause it's not, you know, but like, I feel like if you can't find a philosophy that, like, motivates you to keep working and keep going, then what's the point? Like, what are we doing this for, right? Why are we living life?
You want to hear mine?
Yeah.
Corona has done some interesting things, and I'm in an internship right now all about telling stories of resilience among New Mexicans. And it's a very important thing to me, this idea of resilience. And there's a lot to be said there, but where I really came to it, and the reason why I applied to it, probably the reason why I got it, is because I live by this core philosophy of hopepunk. So, picture me I have long hair at this point. I have nice long hair. And I'm seeing the world crumble at my hands. You know, Trump has just gotten elected. I see Brexit taking our closest partner and my closest thing. At this point, I really wanted to live in England for a variety of reasons. And I'm seeing Brexit destroy, like, the culture and, like, mindset of England. Like, all this negative stimulus, you know, there's this guy Duterte that's like pulling up in the Philippines and like trying to execute drug dealers. Like there's this guy in Brazil that's like evil human being, and it's not like any of the rest of Brazil's leaders have been better for a long time. Look it up. Brazil's got like a long history of corruption and fuck around and shenanigans, I guess. When you hit with all this negative stimulus, you have a couple options. The first and most present option, and a lot of people take it, is this apathetic reaction, a cynical reaction, to say, fuck it, nothing can be changing, it's nihilistic, it's like the world's going to be shit, so let's listen to Nine Inch Nails or whatever.
Oh my God.
But there's an opposite reaction. And if you look at it through game theory, I really believe that the only reasonable and only rational action to take is then to fight any of this negative stimulus, especially with this negative stimulus, with hope, with a radical sort of manifest optimism.
Correct.
And then at that point, like, hope becomes the opposite of the status quo. It becomes like unapathetic. It becomes the inverse of the apathetic. It becomes like actively acting in resistance almost to this apathetic sentiment. It becomes counterculture. It becomes resistance. It becomes, punk rock, if you would be.
No, it does.
And so that's where this term comes from. It comes from a Tumblr thing in like 2015 or 2014 of this like response, an aesthetic response to the Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, like really bleak portrayal of people. That it's like instead of portraying people as what they call like grim dark, worse than things maybe actually are. Instead, you portray this actively better, actively more optimistic, actively more hopeful display of people, display of the world. And that then snowballs. It becomes this effect. And that's what hope punk really is about. It's like actively resisting this horseshit, this bullshit. I was first introduced to it by a person at this game developer operations called like ABQ it's something way cooler, but and like they first told me about it and I was like, okay, cool. And then just over time that sat with me and it's really become this philosophy. What hope punk really is 4 tenets. It's at first radical optimism. And that really is what resilience is radical optimism. It's facing every situation and taking in the bullshit and almost using that as fuel to be more and more stoked about things, more and more excited, more and more motivated to do stuff because the world is shit. One of my dearest friends, one of my most close inspirations, one of the people I respected most in the world was this mid-game hip-hop artist, Andrew Martinez, who went by the name of Wake Self. He had been sober for 9 years, and weeks, maybe 1 week, honestly, before his newest album was about to debut, he got killed by a drunk driver in a car crash. 9 years sober. And it's like, fuck, dude. The irony, the literal just like bullshitness of that operation, that he had actively been sober. He had actively understood this addiction, actively understood this need for inebriation, this need for something else, this need for almost being numb. And he worked against it, and still the universe worked against him. A lot of my friends, a lot of the people that were like kind of following what he was saying dropped the fuck off. They were like, if this guy that is the champion of what we're talking about gets screwed over by the universe, what are we going to do? But I think of it in the entirety of the opposite, like the entire inverse. It's like, because he got screwed over, that should make us work harder towards this manifest optimism. And then continuing on, it then goes to radical empathy. That it's like, I have to feel for my other man, like the other folk, like more than is the status quo, a radical sense. I have to try to relate to people more than what is expected to try to continue on this optimism. It's like, if I can feel for you more than what most other people would, what would be expected, then something more can be achieved. And then it goes to radical kindness. It's that it's like, if I feel for you, then I can be radically kind. I can be like, I don't know, within the people that kind of subscribe to this philosophy, radical kindness, radical forgiveness. It can be a little bit of a difference, but I forgive people more than necessarily I should, to continue on this line of like, I believe in the ideal scenario, and the ideal scenario and the aspiration towards it is what drives me in a way. And seeing that it's like, yeah, I could do something, but it's like, I know that I could do something, so I'm going to try and do it as far as I want to, as far as that I do it. And like that all kind of leads to, as far as I want to, leads to the fourth tenet. And perhaps the most important tenet, other than the radical optimism, than the hope living, is radical authenticity. And all these four can work together in different ways. Sometimes they can interfere with each other, and sometimes it's a judgment call to see which one of these tenets you rely on most. But the radical authenticity is so important. The more real you are, the more you're able to engage your own hope, especially hope as a weapon. Whenever you present a facade, especially among people that I don't talk to, you know a couple things. You know that no one is ever going to fall in love with a facade. You know that no one's ever going to believe in a facade to the point that they're going to then continue this on. You know that unless you're entirely a sociopath. And so I want to say hope punk is not for sociopaths. Just going to throw that out there. But like, the radical authenticity is so important, and it can almost be like more grounding than the rest of these traits, because it can kind of like guide your decisions among this thing. So let's actionalize it or practicalize it maybe. Something really shit happens to you. For me, for example, one of my dear friends that was like kind of riding with this deal gets in a DUI, and after this DUI, literally flips out on anybody that was supporting them. Just totally cuts everybody off. Just totally lashes out at everybody. Fuck them to life. So the first thing, the radical optimism thing, is think that, yes, you can recover from this. The radical authenticity thing is that I knew that I needed to take space from it to create this foundation so that I could potentially give this kind of radical kindness, this kind of radical forgiveness to this person at a later date. I knew that, like, within this framework, I had to stay true to myself and trust the gut that I needed to be able to separate myself from this person for a short time to be able to be in the place where I could actually support them, actually in a way forgive them, and actually serve as the community forgiving them to help them get to a better place, like to succeed again. Another way that's a terrible way to practicalize that.
No, I think that's an amazing way to. And the reason why I say that is I agree with you. The most important out of any of those principles of philosophy that you've brought up is authenticity. Because Absolutely. If you're not, again, like if you're not true to yourself, if you don't know who you are, or at least as much as you can at at that point in your life, you will not be able to bring the best of yourself and the best of your inherent resources to anyone else that you're trying to help, right? If you're not as authentic. Thank you. Yes, if you're not as authentic as you can be, then you will not be able to bring the best form of forgiveness, of kindness, of understanding of the person that might need it, right? Yeah. And that in itself can be an indirect facade. That can be something that you aren't trying to like shelter away from somebody, but you will be because you haven't found that true authenticity within yourself. Absolutely. So I think this idea and philosophy structure that includes a radical authenticity. I think more people need to give that, give it its stay, really let that simmer in their own life and let that really figure out okay, if whether you're building a business, you're raising a family, you're nurturing any sort of relationship that you have, I think that you need, like, you owe it to yourself as much as you do the other people to an extent. You need to let them know who they're dealing with, and you need to understand who you're dealing with, because every day you deal with yourself.
So when you say that, this kind of reflexive hope punk thing, it just brings to mind one thing that we've brought up is a hope punk holiday. Call it Pain Day. And it's like, take one day out of the year, one day out of the month, one day out of the fucking week if you want, and just take it as your pain day. Take a small portion of it and literally embrace the suck. I mean, you're familiar with that operation, but it's like expressing radical forgiveness, radical kindness, radical empathy to yourself, which is authentic.
That's very important.
So the Pain Day, the Hope Punk holiday, goes pretty much like this. You start off with just literally recounting your bullshit for a second. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I always think of, whenever I start doing this process, I think of one of the more embarrassing moments to myself, which is we had a new squadron commander at New Mexico Military Institute, and he came around 3rd Squadron, came around the slab, and he went to shake everybody's hands, which I respect so much in retrospect, that he's like, I'm going to go and do some Beto O'Rourke shit, and I'm going to go to every county in Texas. I'm going to shake everybody's hands. He comes to my room. I'm living with Evan Tirado at the time, and he comes in there. Like, I know Evan Tirado is butt-ass naked in his bed, just passed out. So, like, I wake up, I need to be saying something. And he comes up there, and I shake his hand. Here, let me see your hand. And this is what I did. I literally did, like, this or some shit.
Oh, my God.
I, like, tucked the pinky for no reason and made a very awkward handshake. And, like, sitting there looking at Sergeant Major Jameson right there, or whatever his... Actually, I don't remember his rank at that time, but... Lieutenant Colonel, maybe. Like, he was going to be our new squadron commander, and I just definitely remember I gave him a handshake with some weird reflexive pinky magic that I was just like, oh. He came by to shake everybody's hands, and of course, when he come to shake my hand, like, I fuck it up. And I just sit in that for a second, and I embrace that suck for a second. I'm like, oh. And then you move on to more important shit. But it's like...
I get you.
Capturing that regret, capturing that negative energy in, like, a very isolated time. It's like, after that first session, you go to harder stuff, you go to harder stuff, you go to harder stuff. And maybe after 30 minutes of you embracing the suck, then you let it go. And, like, giving it time to actually acknowledge this bullshit for a second. To acknowledge the stuff that you regret, these mistakes, these fuck-ups, these things that, like, bother you. Giving it its space and acknowledging it and embracing it and, like, being authentic to it. Then when you switch it off, when you let it go, it frees you.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's some real shit.
Yeah, dude.
No, that is freeing. And I think that, like, what you just said is something that people pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to a therapist to hear.
Therapy is the biggest scam, dude. Therapy never ends, bro.
I think it's so important, and that's one of the tenets. If there were, like, and there isn't, at least not physically and written down, but if there were, like, topics or ideals or just important subject matters that I want to promote and openly speak about on this platform, one of them for sure is mental health. And I think that is a huge part of it, is accepting the fact that, first of all, you're never going to be perfect. There is not perfect, right? Perfect is an ideal, and it's definitely something you should work towards. And I think you should reward yourself along the way, because progress is very important to be rewarded. That's why you have a reward system. But recognizing that you have made mistakes, that you're going to continue to make mistakes, and that while some mistakes can hurt people along the way, and it can hurt yourself along the way.
Sure.
The most important thing is to, when this happens, whether you are consciously making the mistake, right? Or if you come upon it by accident, that you look at it and you're like, okay, well, let's really break this down. Like, why did I do it? If it's a purposeful. And I feel like the most obvious one is like cheating on a spouse or cheating on a girlfriend, whatever it is. And it's like, okay, well, why did I do it?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it something that could have been avoided? Probably. Probably. But if I did, like, if this happens, okay, well, is there an element within the why or the how that I can fix for the future so that I do not repeat this step, right?
Sure.
And there is going to be, no matter what mistake it is, there is always going to be elements that you can improve on. I think the scariest thing for anyone is either looking at yourself or someone you care about looking at you and saying, right now, you are the best you are ever going to be.
Fuck.
That is the scariest thing that I think anyone can realize about themselves. Because at that point, there is no improvement. There's no perceived improvement. Even in reality, of course, there is. I think that it is, and again, this kind of goes back to the idea of imposed hardship. Improvement is hard. It is so easy, so easy to be complacent, to be, okay, I am happy with where I'm at, and I don't want to leave this place. Now, financially, that's okay, because especially now during this pandemic, like, I'm just happy to have a job.
Absolutely.
So it's like I have a job right now where I can pay my bills, I continue to feed myself, I can feed my partner, and on occasion I can kind of like hook up my boys.
Sure.
That's all I can ask for. Absolutely. And I can fund this. You know what I mean? Which is the definition of an extracurricular. But when it comes to something like physically, mentally, spiritually, being content and saying, I'm not going to leave this space because it scares me, because I know it's going to hurt, because I might fail, that is something that I feel like a lot of people have a genuine, deep struggle with getting past. And I hope that, like, and this is not the first time that I've spoken about this, and it's definitely not going to be the last, something I'm very passionate about, because it's something that I deal with and I struggle with daily. Okay. And it's at the most, in my personal thing, and whether or not this is healthy is definitely up for debate. But like in my personal experience, it's like, I know what I should be doing. Yeah. And if I make a conscious decision not to do it, I'm fucking weak. Like, if I make a conscious decision to not, when I have a clear option, when, like, let's say, like with eating, right? When I have a clear option to eat healthy, and it's financially better for me, it's physically better for me, and therefore mentally better for me, but I still choose to feed myself some sort of shit, why? Right? It's like, why? And I feel like coming to terms, kind of like what you were saying, the radical authenticity. I feel like that is a very tough thing for a lot of people to come to terms with, understandably so. In a society where we are fueled by instant gratification, we're fueled by social media, we're fueled by mass-marketed fear, right? And then you top all of that with a pandemic. Now we're all, not saying that's a bad thing, but just stating facts, like we're all wearing masks, we're socially distancing, we are scared of a vaccine, like, you know what I mean? Like there's so many more added elements after 2020 happened that like people need to realize that like you can get to fixing the world around you. You can definitely get to that. And if you so desire, I feel like the people who really want to will. But you will never get to that if you can't at least continuously fix yourself. Right?
Absolutely. And the fact that you're saying continuously right there, I think is really important. acknowledging that it's a process. A researcher, neuroscience PhD or something, in my internships research about resilience talks about resilience and acknowledging that it is a process. And she says that one of the people that told her most about it was this 12 or 13-year-old in Afghanistan when she was doing this research after American intervention. I'm not sure what the deal is, but there was definitely like a disaster state, and she goes there as a civilian and is studying and talking to these communities about resilience, and trying to understand that, especially resilience among young adults and children. And like this tween, maybe young teenager told her, it's like, I don't think that it's going to end tomorrow. I don't think that it's going to end next week. And I know that. So when I mess up, I get back up. And I know that it's a process. And I know that it's never going to end. So I never lose. Maybe I never win. I kind of win. She's like, I never win because I keep on going. And it's not a zero-sum game. It's not a here and now thing. It's a continuous process. And I definitely paraphrased that from a paraphrased thing that she wrote, but like I think that
the principle is still definitely there.
Understands.
No, yeah, and I mean in life,
I would love to just cut you off as I'm good at, and just share something that's like really mean to me. Like
go ahead.
I've always been an academic. I mean, like I went through school. I was always like ahead in school. And my end of my sophomore year, like I dropped out of school. I was planning to be a geologist, and that was not at all the right thing for me. And with the coronavirus, like I was able to have this kind of time to step back, this peace, this solitude, like this break, almost like a gasp for air, and it helped me realize like that I do want to go back to school. Now that I am in school now, which is something I absolutely pledged to myself I would never do, I recognize the process is like definitely chiefed in humility alongside this authenticity. Humility and authenticity have a very curious interaction with each other, but it's like to be able to get over yourself, to know yourself, is like definitely there. And it's like, yeah, I tortured myself for years after I left Tennessee. I tortured myself. And it was like I was never in the right place to begin with. And it's like only now that I feel comfortable in what I'm doing was I able to ever acknowledge and engage with what I was doing with Tennessee. And like that patience, that almost like time to spend with myself, like that hesitancy to be able to take a second and like acknowledge my shit, the mindfulness, if you would, is like the strangest silver lining of the COVID-19 era that I could ever ask for. Like it let me go back to school, and like now I work for the big red sorry. I won't do that again, but it's too funny to me. You know, the ocean of blood, the And I mean, it's just like I feel fulfilled now, and it's something that I would have never imagined myself 3-4 years ago that I could have ever engaged with. And now I really see like that there is a pathway for me, and it's like that transition, that ability to be there. Like I'm so much better at school now that I know what I'm doing. Like it's
That's
ludicrous.
saying something coming from you. That's saying something.
Like it's ludicrous to be able to recognize that, because like so long I was fighting for it, and now I'm like fighting for something for myself. And like that only is a change of mindfulness, change of headspace, change of mindset. And like it's only given by that break. And it's like that break didn't have to happen because of COVID. That break could happen literally whenever. Like I love coding. I hope to eventually work with some post-processing effects, and I'm very comfortable with a lot of the software involved with it, like Premiere Pro, which is an editing software.
That's what I use for the podcast.
Yeah. I'll definitely love to work with you on that, like at some point, because it's like it's where my what I want to do and what I'm good at kind of come together, right? And it's like that's very engaging for me. And it's like all it would have taken was like a half hour and someone to bounce shit off of what they call rubber duck debugging in this deep dive coding course, which is literally you're explaining your code to a rubber duck. And if you can explain your code to this rubber duck that's inanimate and you can explain it the right way, you'll figure out what's wrong with it. That's literally the entire thesis of it. Is that it's like if you can explain it, then you can figure it out. And it's like all I need someone to bounce something off of and like a solid 30 minutes to talk to myself. And I could have figured that out 3.5, maybe 4 years ago. That I wanted to be working in entertainment. That is what I love. That is what I like. I like to write and make and create. And why did it take so long? That's the entirety of the question to me, is that it's like, what stopped me before? And I think that was just, actually, I don't know what it was, but I know what a lot of my, I guess my original peers would say, and maybe you'll have some fun with this. I've interacted with 3 or 4 people that blame Nimi for all their problems right now. And it's so entertaining to me. They're like, well, when I was 13, I was abused and I was hazed. And it's like, oh, okay.
Shut the fuck.
But I'm like, shut the fuck up. So was I, dude. You know what I mean?
So first of all, I want to make this exceedingly fucking clear. We were not hazed at Nibby. We were not fucking beaten. We were not, because the people in charge of us that would have hazed us were like fucking 16 to 19-year-olds, and they were not fucking hitting. Did we get yelled at a little bit, but it wasn't nothing fucking extreme. Like, no. And I agree with you. Like, there are people, granted, I don't talk to those people anymore by a very conscious choice. But there are people that I have known that do blame me for their problems. And I take that criticism and I take that hypothesis of Nimi and I say, okay, before I continue, New Mexico Military Institute is a military school down in Roswell. Anyway, I look at that hypothesis and that criticism and I reject it. And my chief reason for it is if there's like a golden statement of how to survive it, not thrive, not achieve, not supersede anyone else, to survive it, you just have to know how to follow rules and be comfortable with studying. That's really it.
That would be what we call a type 2. I see myself as a type 4. You could see, for example, actually, no, that's not worth it. I would be able to name a type 1, but that's just like an anomaly. Someone that is able to engage a robotic sense of self. A type 2 is just like, okay, you got to follow the rules and you got to be able to learn how to study. Type 3 is you got to be able to know how to deal with the shit when it does go wrong and know how to study. A type 4 is it's like you got to be able to actively find the loopholes in the rules.
No, yeah.
And studies for chumps.
And so like for me, like I definitely survived high school.
Sure, absolutely.
You know, like I wasn't academically sound, and like my faulting points were mathematics and science. I became a lot better with English and history my junior and senior year, but it just wasn't really my thing. And the most that I got out of going to the Institute was my social skills.
Absolutely.
Because I made a lot of mistakes at a young age, which
Sure.
if I could look back now and say, would I make those mistakes now or make them when I'm 18 to 19, I would much prefer 18 to 19 in a controlled environment.
Sure.
So my social skills were like compounded upon a million times going to that place, especially staying for the 2-year college program, because I was in such a place of influence that I had no other choice. And I think when you speak of something like self-aware, like I took that super seriously just because like they when you look at the structure of that place and you look at some, like, I was given so, because they trusted me to have the judgment. Like, I was given so much free reign and so much just freedom that it's not an exaggeration to say that place was my playground my sophomore year of college, for better or worse. And
Albuquerque is my playground today.
But I took that opportunity and I was like, okay, I know the detriment that I can bring to some people, and I'm not going to do that because that is not my place. Instead, I want to help. Like, there are like so many people that I saw at that school, whether they were quite literally freshmen in high school like we were back in 2011, 10 fucking years ago.
Oh God!
Coming up on 10 years, dude. I was having that conversation with Christine like 3 weeks ago, and how her and I have been, because we all would have been friends for 10 years, and you don't really think about it till it gets told to you. 10 years. Anyway, so whether it was literal freshmen in high school or it was fellow sophomores in college, I saw a lot of the new, like, being a new cadet, right? Being a new individual in this very foreign system that is not exposed to hardly anyone in that age range, for better or worse.
Right.
And so it is either I worry about myself and I just take care of myself and I just get through it and move on, and I use my extra freedom to benefit myself. Or, again, to be quite frank, this is the first time I've really thought about it like this, but it was induce a little bit of self-imposed hardship and go out of my way to try and help these people, because like, that is not a school that you can get through by yourself.
Oh, absolutely not.
That is not a place you can get through by yourself. And because there are, like, they say it's not a reform school, and it's not. Like, it's not made to take bad kids and shape them into good ones. It is to take those who have the potential and find it somewhere. But that potential is only found if that person is open to wanting it to be found.
You know, on this note, I was very close to being photo chief. I didn't end up being photo chief because of some politics, but I was the second command of, like, the entirety of the public affairs cadet operation.
Right.
And I had no idea how to use a camera the entire time. I was the S5, JROTC, like, head of public affairs with zero active experience in any sort of public affairs operation. And it's so funny because now, like, I have, like, actively got 2 years experience on the camera. I'm working on film sets. I'm actively working as a location scout, you know. I'm taking, like, a stupid amount of credits going to school as an adult and literally in this world. I'm just thinking about, if I had been a little bit less cynical and a little bit more genuine trying to do this photo work as a 14-year-old or whatever, because I was young as shit, because I'm really cool, like, how much of a head start I would have had. Like, now actively I do some of the stuff that I, like, at work, and I was photo squad at NIMI, like, I actively would do it all the time, but, like, with an actual stake to it. And it's just like, I don't understand why whenever I was given responsibility at the Institute, I would fight it so hard that I was like, how do I complete this task with zero sort of acumen, zero learning? That was the, like, theme of anything I did. I was like, okay, I'm given this task. How do I actively not do it and get away with it?
Right. Well, and that's a very... and
I did it a lot.
Yeah, that's a very common thing. But, and I'll leave it on this note, because we're coming up on a little over 2 hours, which is awesome. Seamless, I say. And I have the same thoughts. Not exactly I was with Photo Squad, but, like, with the things that I got involved with, and, like, the just like with like what I dealt with there.
Sure.
And I think about it, and I'm like, yeah, no, for sure. Like, I wonder how far ahead I would have been, not only there, but maybe in life, but like how my progression would have been had I applied the same amount of effort to something that, whatever year it is, if I'd done it like 3 years beforehand, 2 years beforehand, so on and so forth. But again, the way I view it for myself is like, I just much rather would have made those mistakes when I did.
I'm just cracking myself up because can you picture Hotel 206? We're doing this exact same thing. Circa 2013. Noah's out here just like very, very quiet. He's like, welcome to the Hotel 206. Hello. We're coming at you live from Juliet Troop.
Oh my God.
Very exciting to have you here today. We're talking to, what's your name? Hi, I'm Private First Recruiter. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, cool, I don't care. Thank you for being here on Regimental Watch, sponsored by the Cadet government. And you know what? We hate you, and that's just how it is over here. Thank you for tuning in. And to everybody else, I love you and have a good night.
Dude, oh my God. No,
that's it for me, dude.
Oh my God. The last thing I'll say is like, for all of its faults and for all of the clear just mistakes that I made at that place, just numerous mistakes I made at that place, I really believe that like everything that I've got, ironically enough, outside of education.
Sure.
Everything that I have in my life right now, the people that I know, the things that I'm doing, the way I act, the drive that I have.
Oh, 100%.
All of that is because I spent 6 years there.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, like
total agree.
Like, I mean, if I were to go through the catalog of published episodes and I go through my schedule of projected episodes to shoot, good majority of those people are related to Nimi in one way or another. My fucking producer went to Nimi. Sure. Like that's just how it is, and I don't know why, but like I'm not exactly mad about it either.
But that's the difference between you blaming your problems on the Institute and taking a gratitude from it. I can hear myself. Hey, it's been a pleasure.
Yes, it has been.
Buy Altoids.
Altoids sponsor me.
My film's coming out. Actually, no, I don't need that. I don't need to throw out my own YouTube channel. You can find it if you like.
You know what? I'll throw it in the description. I'll throw it in the description. Yeah, seriously, thank you for being here. You are more than welcome back anytime. This was a absolute pleasure, and I know for a fact that we haven't even hit like the rest of everything. So I can't wait for that later date to come. Thank you guys for listening and watching. Check us out on Spotify. We're finally on Spotify. And we'll catch you guys next time. Thanks, man.
Adios.
Beautiful. Fucking beautiful.